My name is Carl Quo, and this is Founder Quest, a podcast about the journeys of starting a game studio. Today we're talking with Jon Selin of Low Drag Labs. Jon shares his journey of moving away from mobile games back to his first love of MMO-like multiplayer experiences. He took the leap into a fully bootstrapped dev team, first as a solo effort, and now with a co-founder, and he talks about his journey of how it compares to the sort of idealized zeitgeist version of solo development currently going on out there. I found Jon's reflection on the industry, the journey, and startup life really great to dig into. And behind the scenes, I'm also a huge fan of what they're working on, so it was great to hear how Jon got there. It's a great conversation. Let's jump in. So the place that I normally start the conversation is finding out, this is not your first sort of startup. You're not your first founding journey. So as you approach this one, what sort of pushed you over the edge to from maybe I'll start a studio, maybe this is something I'll explore, to oh no, I'm doing this. I'm super committed to doing it.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I've done this before. So it was less about the decision to do a startup for me because I knew what I was going to get into doing a startup, right? This is technically number 3. And I think it was more about, for me, about the specific opportunity and the idea I had. So there's I think a less interesting story and a more interesting story. But when it comes to why it was right for me, I've been in free-to-play on mobile for a long time, and that has some toxic elements to it when it comes to the free-to-play performance marketing ecosystem, right? You do spend a lot of your time thinking about how you are going to outcompete in terms of unit economics compared to everybody else. And it's not my favorite thing about making games, but obviously, the business is always part of running a company. So I've been wanting to get out of the mobile first industry for a while, especially in the post IDFA world, where it became much more of a winner takes most industry and just much more about the monetization aspects. Looking specifically into getting into some interesting multi-platform stuff. And it was just time after a decade at Pocket Gems. And I was at Pocket Gems for that long because it was an amazing company. Some of the smartest people I've ever worked with. I learned stuff every day, which is why you can still have fun after that long. Just working with really smart people. And I would say in a positive way, people that had a lot of imposter syndrome. So you didn't get this thing where people were sitting on their ideas and being protective of them. Instead, they would show up to you with their ideas and being like, "Hey, I designed this thing, I built this thing. I think it's garbage. Please help me." Right? And that's just a fun atmosphere to be in. So yeah, I've been looking for a little bit, basically in how to move out of mobile free-to-play, thinking about what's next, taking a few different discussions, and I've been noodling on this idea for a long time about basically what's wrong with MMOs today. In the past, back 10, 20 years, MMOs were for sure one of the biggest, most exciting genres out there, right? And today, people don't really play MMOs in the way that they did before. The industry has grown a ton. We have so many more players than we did 20 years ago. But the MMO genre has stayed flat pretty much since then. That hasn't grown. And really, like it dawned on me when I was playing World of Warcraft Classic during COVID, the first round of COVID, because I was very into World of Warcraft. That I played back in the day. I had some stuff in Classic that I never got to finish. I never finished Naxxramas back in the original. So I ran a guild. I played pretty hardcore. We completed Naxxramas with a bunch of old timers. First completed it, and then after many runs, I think our best time on it when we started competing on there was like an hour and a half for the full Naxxramas run. So we went pretty hardcore, and then I participated in some world first stuff as well. Some attempts to world first Ragnaros in the classic. The reboot they did after that. And we got second, not first, unfortunately. So I'm playing World of Warcraft. My kids are watching me play, and they think it looks super exciting because there are hundreds of players running around. We all seem very excited. There's cool things going on the screen. They're teenagers. They're into this kind of stuff. And so they're asking to play World of Warcraft with me. And they're like, yeah, of course, I'll play with you. And we get in, and they're immediately like, oh, shit. Are we just like killing these wolves and talk to people for hours? Where's the fun stuff that you were doing? Were you running with 100 people fighting the bosses? Like, oh, no, that's 6 months from now. Like we're going to be leveling and, walking from area to area, doing all this stuff. They're like, oh, geez, no, we're good. We're going to go back to playing stuff where things are happening right away. And that's really where it's about. It's like TikTok and YouTube generations. Their entertainment has become so much sharper. It is at the tip of your finger, and it is tuned to a way where a few minutes into playing the game, you're getting what's really cool about the experience immediately, right? It's presented to you. We don't go to the movies or only play these like big box games anymore that you play for 80 hours. People are playing smaller games. People are watching miniseries, shorts. Entertainment is just tighter now. So that was the realization that I had, and I really wanted to pursue how can I capture the type of fun that I've experienced in MMOs and that I know exist inside them. Because as somebody who's played and made MMOs for 25 years, um, I know of some of these great experiences, but they're just I haven't that gatekeeper per se, but there's a barrier to entry to get to these experiences. And making a game where anybody can pick it up and get into those things just minutes into the game, that was very exciting to me. So that's when I decided I'm gonna go make this game, and I'll start a company around this. I believe it's one of the few opportunities where if you can nail that, there are hundreds of millions of players out there that would like to, either if they're former MMO players, millennials that don't have time to play anymore, that would like to have the MMO experience but don't have the time to play, an old school MMO, or the younger generations, like my kids, they're teenagers and play socially, Minecraft private servers or what have you, but uh, bounce off the traditional MMO.
So you you've done this a couple times before, and so sort of the base mechanics of like what is it to start a company and what does that really mean? You have a couple runs at it. You probably have some hard earned lessons from all of it. So this time around, what did you find was kind of the big learning journey that you had to go on once you're like, okay, I'm leaving Pocket Gems, I'm starting this thing, I'm focused on this problem space, but what did you have to learn this time as far as setting up and going on this founding journey?
I think it's not so much about learning, but something that you have to remember, even if you've done this before, is the amount of energy it takes. It took me over a decade to charge back up again to that level where knowing what I was going to get into, feeling like I have the energy to do this again. And I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I always knew I was going to do it again. But it takes a while, I think, to have to look at those years of work and stress that you're going to put in, and feel like, yes, I can take that on. I'm in a place where I feel solid about that, and setting up your life around it, making sure you have the support system, the financials, just the situation where you can do it, right? It is scary every time. I think people look at people that have founded companies multiple times, and like, oh yeah, it's easy now. You're on your fourth go around. It's like, no, it's not easy. It's never easy. It's just about uh, knowing the struggle you're going to take on. Um, and I've done hard things before, like being the army service and various things. Like you go through this a few times, like startups, various hard experiences, being tear gas and marching for 24 hours. It doesn't matter what it is, right? You learn that it's not a disaster if your pizza delivery is an hour late, and then you're working with maybe younger people that in their first job and just losing their mind if they don't get food. Like you grow a little thick skin, right? And I think embracing that thick skin and realizing that case time we're gonna go into it, we're going to really like remember what it's like to do hard things, and be excited about that again.
I think it's very very salient, the idea that like just because I founded a company before Jam and Tea, and so walking into Jam and Tea, it's not that it was an easier experience. It's just that I knew more of how hard it would be along the way, and certainly there are new things every time, right? Like there's, you know, the world keeps on turning, and the
Yeah.
ecosystem in which you're doing a startup is always changing, and so you're learning new things because of that. But it's far less. Oh, now I know all the cheat codes, and so this is going to be an easy journey. It's more like, oh no, I know I'm exactly as insane as you think I am because I signed up for this again,
Hmm. Yeah. More so this time around. The
right?
first time around,
Yeah, the
I,
first the first time I was just
yeah,
stupid. This time I'm just
yeah,
insane, right?
yeah. No, definitely. And some of the most important learnings from all times are, it always comes down to like timing, for example, and opportunity and things, right? And the first time I had one startup called Lockpick Entertainment, and we did this MMO RTS thing, very similar to games like. Let's say Game of War, these like 4X games that were later successful on Facebook and mobile and stuff. We were just too early, wrong place, wrong time, and the ecosystem that exists. There wasn't like a Facebook gaming place that existed, so we had our own website, and technology wasn't quite there. Using a bunch of like Ajax back in the day on the website. Um, and then you're looking a few years later at these games making billions of dollars, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, this is very close to the same game. It's just like all of these distribution opportunities didn't exist, some technology didn't exist, right? And you know, this time around, like I think that the product is in a very exciting opportunity space. I didn't do this because all of a sudden there was game funding starting to become available. I actually didn't really pay attention or know about that. And there was a quite crazy frenzy for a bit with game funding. Um, and I came in on the tail end of that, didn't hit that boat. And then remembered, like, oh, yeah, right. The main lesson from previous times, timing. And yeah, it's tricky. Some of those things are luck, if you will. I don't think necessarily there are such a thing as luck, but the world is a crazy and chaotic place, and it's close enough to luck. You unfortunately can't look at all of the data all at once.
Yeah. I often think of luck as actually a externalized reflection of an individual's adaptability. Like there's tons of stuff going on. How well do you adapt to the situation? How well do you roll with the punch? How well do you like see something and adapt your approach to lean into it, right? uh,
I like that. I like that definition. I often talk to my kids about this when they're raging at somebody in Rainbow Six Siege or something, or they're making excuses why they're losing. I'm just trying to explain, like, it doesn't matter. Just focus on the things that you could have changed and assume that everything was in your control to change. Because what is the alternative, right? You just give up or blame somebody else. That's loser talk. It's like, put everything on your shoulders. Think about it as all your fault. Look at what you could have done different.
so I know that you're working with another person on this startup. Is that
Mhm.
a co-founder, or is that someone you're just sort of like working with as a dev?
Yeah, no, Mike Hines is a co-founder,
Hmm.
and basically the short version is that I did this for almost a year myself, build up a prototype and stuff, and then I met Mike, and we worked together for a bit, and it became clear that he was a great fit. So he became a co-founder, and then we've been working now for another year together on this project.
When you talk about, he was a great fit, right? Like that a lot of different people have a lot of different definitions for what makes a great fit as a co-founder, and sometimes it can be the sort of well, I'm the tech person and they're the design person and this other person is the business person, right? Like it can be really more about their sort of discipline or skill set. But I found that a lot of times it's really about a personality fit of like how your brains complement each other, how your thinking complements each other, how your strengths and weaknesses complement each other. And so I'm curious, like, take me through that journey of like, obviously working with someone on a project is a great way to learn all these things, but what ended up being the things that made him a great fit, and how did you suss that out? How did you make discover that along the way?
Yeah. So I think of being co-founders as being in a relationship, and it has to be the classic fuck yes or no answer when it comes to having a co-founder. So the way I approach figuring out if somebody's a great fit is we have to just try working together for a little bit as if we were running a company together before we make the decision. There has to be a little bit of a testing period. Uh, so that's what we did. We worked on the actual game together, and just getting into the weeds of building stuff together. You have to, I think, step one as co-founders, you just have to have fun doing your day-to-day job together. If you don't do that, you're going to be miserable. It's going to seep into everything else, and you're going to end up resenting each other. So you just have to have fun doing whatever the thing is that you're going to be doing together most of the time. So that's the first thing that we just sussed out. Like, let's before we make a decision here, let's make sure, like, for a week or two that we work together for a serious amount of hours and see if this is working. And when it comes to co-founders too, like, soft skills are primary skills. People running a company, and not just because of what we just talked about, having fun together, but um, the values of a company and the way, once you start growing, the way uh, everybody conduct themselves, the way you work, it radiates from the founders. You can say that you have all the values that you want, but at the end of the day, the most senior people, the values that they demonstrate, how they work, how they behave, etc. Those are the values that people are going to take to heart, and you need to align those. You need to align your theoretical, written down values with uh, kind of who you are as people. And so when it came to Mike Hines, my co-founder, he you know radiated all of the things that I care strongly about. Things like um, a sense of craftsmanship, um, being very candid, but also a good listener. Being somebody who you can. It's important that you can be candid and just give very harsh feedback. Sometimes, people think that the work is kind of tied into your value as a person, so it can be hard to hear feedback on your work. That is not, you that's not good. We're gonna do something different. Um, and it's just very important that you're both able to express that kind of feedback very clearly and take that kind of feedback without there being an ego there. And as I started seeing these, like, core signals of what I think as the really important values and how I want to run a company. I had an idea for a long time, like, the next company that I start, here's some things that I want in terms of how we run things. We're going to be small, we're going to be lean, we're going to use a lot of new exciting technology. Um, there's going to be force multipliers for very experienced people. uh, really tighten that feedback loop. We're gonna have play testing every day. There's a bunch of things that I want in there. Just seeing that, like, yeah, he clicks with all of these things. Perfect.
How have you guys developed your patterns around sort of making decisions together, right? Like, and there's obviously the sort of small decisions that are important around making a game and all the design decision stuff, but like you really thinking about the big company decisions, right? Like those sorts of things, like partially aligning on both the values, but how we express the values, that kind of stuff. Thinking about when and how to do fundraising, thinking about big strategic choices for the company. How have you guys sort of formalized your patterns around making those decisions together and dealing with disagreements along the way?
Yeah. In our situation, so I have a very like aggressive director personality. Um, I remember maybe 5 or 10 years ago, I did the Myers Briggs test that everybody was getting so into, and immediately comes out to explain like, hey, this personality that you have is basically similar to like a mafia boss personality. So I have to kind of embrace that, understand that, and bring it back down when I need to. But that being said, I'm very much kind of in the driving position for a lot of kind of these decisions, and I have kind of fairly aggressively certain ways that I want certain things to be. Um, and Mike is not that way at all. So we had to talk about that in terms of like how can he have a signal to bring up like you're doing the thing, Swede. You're steamrolling. You need to shut up and listen. And I think this is the best thing. And I have to, learn to listen when he, gets a certain look in his eyes or just a certain signal that's like, okay, it's time to like. Most of the time we're doing it this way. Here's something where like I disagree strongly, and we need to explore something different. That's product or strategy, what have you. That being said, 99% of our decisions are, we just talk through it and agree. We list out all the decision tree that we have. We talk about what's our first choice, what's our second choice, what makes most sense right now. Um, so uh, we almost always just arrive at the same conclusion. It's uh, it's very easy that way. It's kind of a non-decision because it's very obvious as we talk through all of the various paths what's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think when you spend the time with co-founders to talk through things like that, a lot of times, especially if you're aligned in values and that kind of stuff, that's where the decisions tend to convene, because like theoretically you're relatively aligned, you're both very intelligent, you've talked through the journey, and so you're on the same mental journey around the problem, so you probably will end up at the same conclusion, right? I think it's when co-founders sort of split the work, right? Like, oh, I'll take on fundraising, you take on development, where that can have more moments where you have to realign and have that disagreement because you haven't been on the same journey and you're not thinking about the same problems in the same ways, right?
Yeah, and we just do a very frequent alignment. So one of my values that I've been bouncing around names for it is and something that I've been pushing forever is extreme alignment. I believe that is the key to any company, right? Where I want everybody extremely aligned all the time, which means you're gonna talk a lot. You have to bring up all of your disagreements. When you don't like something that's going on, you have to bring that up. And people have to be good listeners. And when somebody brings something up that you might be disagreeing with, you have to be willing to have that conversation and accept that you might be wrong. But we just spend a lot of time talking and aligning and just giving status updates, even if we are splitting some work. We'll chat multiple times a week, just like, hey, here's a thing that's going on. Here's a person that we may or may not be talking to. There's a fund that gave us this feedback, but or it might be minor things that normally wouldn't be worth necessarily talking about. We keep just like doing these status updates, realigning, double checking that we didn't, uh, miss something, do something wrong.
So you mentioned a magical word, fund.
Mhm.
So let's use that as a thinly veneered reason to switch subjects. Could you tell us a bit about how you're funded in whatever detail you feel comfortable sharing?
Absolutely. It's It's not a secret at all, and it's also not the rosiest of situations. So we are still bootstrapped. We're just developing this on our own dime, on our own time, and we have a few angels that have put in a little bit of money, not enough to fund the making of the game or anything, and we are exploring options for funding the game. Um, it's we came in on the tail end of the funding VC madness that was going on for a little bit, right when everybody realized that, like, oh crap, we've been doing something wrong. We need to realign on how we invest in studios, which makes total sense. I had been complaining for years that I saw all these investments that I thought didn't make any sense because they were very large and didn't have VC-sized outcomes. There's just no way that it could have VC-sized outcomes. I pursued this because I thought it was one of the few things that actually did have a potential VC-sized outcome. It was very exciting to me. I love making games, but also I'd like for this to be very successful, make a lot of money. Why not? So we came in there at the tail end, and because I had been not shy about my opinion for years that something was wrong in the VC area. I have a lot of friends too that's in the VC space, the gaming VC space specifically. Um, I was not surprised to see that there was a shakeup happening. I do think that there is uh, I wouldn't say an overcorrection, maybe just a slight miss in the trajectory of the correction. Right now, it's another just hype round with AI, and a lot of people thinking like, oh, maybe there's no way to make money VC investing in game studios. Now, because there are many, many game studios that have had VC size outcomes in the past, that's factually incorrect, right? So then there has to be the other possibility that something is wrong with the rubric that's being used to evaluate what to invest in, right? In terms of um, studios, and that's really where I think some of these areas, like just what the size of investment versus the possible outcome for that kind of studio, that kind of game is, right? There's not going to be some single player storytelling game making like $1 billion, which is what's required to get those $100 million funding back, right? Those are, I mean, even that, like that wouldn't be enough. 5 billion, right? Um, those are kind of absurd outcomes to hope for some of these types of projects, right? So you have to look at the amounts. You have to look at the type of games. The games of service, is it like how are they monetizing? How are they? What platforms are they selling on? What size outcomes, etc.
I think part of the funding retraction and what's been tough over the last couple of years. To your point, I don't think it's necessarily an overcorrection exactly on the VC front. I think it's a combination of VCs pulling back and the AI sort of hype wave coming through, and publishers having pulled back during this time a bunch and
Yeah.
they haven't fully come back in, right? Like, and so it's like all these things sort of stacking on each other.
Yeah,
So
AI is taking a lot of air out of the room, obviously, and the I think there was also too aggressive growth in general in the gaming space, which is why we're seeing, unfortunately, a lot of downsizing across the industry. Just because there was a lot of optimism for a little bit and a lot of growth, and everything goes in these sine waves, right? I think it's unfortunate that I think the takeaway when it comes to, I mean, so there was crypto for a bit for VCs, and there was games, and now it's AI. Like we keep seeing these hype waves coming and going. Some people are going to make a lot of money in each of those waves, and uh, a lot of investments that are coming in at the right time or on the right opportunities are unfortunately going to be left sitting with the bag at the end, looking at tail end of crypto funding, for example.
so you've been bootstrapping for 2 years, 3 years now?
Yeah, yeah. A bit over 2 years for myself, and I mean, I know coming into this, I'm gonna have to have quite a bit of runway. Um, so I'm good, but it changes how you do things, right? There is a world where you get funding, you're immediately getting up to 10, 15, 20, 30 people, right? Whereas I am mostly, for a while, it was just making a game by myself and then adding one more person. And then now it's the two of us making a game with a little bit of help from other people here and there along the way. But in general, two people. And you just have to, at that point, set up the project and your technology base in a way that it can be doable by a very, very small team. And it's just an exciting time to be in game development right now. There are such tools and middlewares and engines that, I mean, I got started in the 90s before C++ was standardized, right? And first thing you do is like write your own linked list system and this and that. Now, with modern engines, uh, with the various asset stores, I mean, I do like AI assistance for coding, for example. It's great for certain things. It's just not necessarily uh, the second coming. It is an amazing tool. Same thing as Visual Studio was great compared to a text editor. That was a force multiplier. Now we just have so many of them. We can make games with just a handful of people that we've taken a giant team in the past. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I think one of the more frequently referenced recent John Carmack tweets is one where he sort of compares the AI stuff to a power tool, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was a very apt reference of like, it's not the machine that does anything, but it's a much more powerful version of a screwdriver. So why would you use just a manual screwdriver when you have the power screwdriver right there?
It's very apt. I think it's very apt. I have asked it to do things that's definitely over its capacity. Like every once in a while, if there's some quaternion math that needs to be done, because the entire internet is confused about Euler angles and quaternions, so is the AI.
Yeah,
So it
turns
just puts
out.
out a bunch of garbage code, right? And you got to go and fix it. And unless you're able to go in there and understand what it tried to do and like where it screwed up, you're not going to be able to use the AI tool. But it is a force multiplier. The same thing like IntelliPoint in modern Visual Studio. These things are like just wonderful tools. The AI is a wonderful tool, right? And used right, it's great.
So when you think about this journey of bootstrapping and pursuing funding in a very tough funding market, and you and I have talked a bunch about like who's out there funding and how to get in contact with various folks and that kind of stuff. What's been the hardest part of that journey for you so far?
Um, so because I'm very lucky to have a lot of connections in the industry, in the VC space, it was quite easy for me to get in touch with everybody and get my pitch in front of uh, people that could make the decision happen. Really, what it comes down to, um, the one of the difficulties I had early on is, so I was pitching something that is basically a new game genre that is hard to explain. So it's hard to pitch something where you can't just say, "Oh, it's Dark Souls with guns" or "Elden Ring with guns," since that had just come out, or uh, you know. Uh, Fortnite but co-op, right? It's like a few more steps that I'm trying to explain to people. So the first round, when I went out to talking to people, and it was just a pitch deck and a dream. I didn't have a prototype yet. They were basically looking at the pitch deck, looking at me, and just like, okay, we don't understand what you're talking about. You're saying roguelike MMO, 200 players, extraction 30 minutes, but it's going to be like an MMO that you play for years, but all takes place in 30 minutes. Shrink down a MMO server to that kind of time scale. And it's just like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, and it is an interesting conversation to have. VCs don't want to hear you talk about product details for 8 hours before they understand what you're doing, because they also don't think that anybody else can understand what the hell you're doing. And that made sense to me. It made sense to me that there was basically a like +4 type pitch, not just +1. There's like one step of understanding what you're doing, but like you have to come along with me on this long journey of talking through all the logical steps, why this makes sense, and why the MMO industry didn't grow with the rest of the games industry, and what people are playing, and how the actual product addresses all these points, right? So I built a prototype, right? that solved that problem. Now, investors come in, play it, and like, yep, this is fun, this is great. You've seen it. It's pretty exciting. Just a few minutes in, but running around fighting a boss with a bunch of people, and some people are fishing, some people are mining, just running around on a horse. They so now that clicks, and like why this would make sense in the current entertainment landscape, where people have shorter sessions, and kids are used to at most like a fortnight round that's like tops of 30 minutes. But then we're in a landscape, right, where for everybody except for I think if you're doing something right now, AI fun like based type gaming service, or something where you're making shovels, you're not actually digging for the gold. You have to have metrics. You have to show what your traction is. So that would be the number one thing if for anybody else is looking into funding, like you just figure out how you can get to traction metrics before your bootstrapping runway goes away, because that is probably what you're going to have to get to. If that is Steam wish lists, or a playtest with a bunch of people, or the size of your Discord server, or a successful Kickstarter, or views on a YouTube trailer, whatever it is, your runway has to, I think, get you to a point where you can deliver some metrics.
And the challenge, I think, has been that those goalposts have continuously moved in a way that I think that they should, towards metrics that are closer and closer to real signal, right? Like I remember talking to founders way back in the day who were like, oh, well, we have, X number of people on our newsletter or X number of people in our Discord, right? And then that became, oh, no, we have this many people who are active day to day on our Discord, not just in the server at all, right? And each of these metrics has sort of evolved as they go to be closer and closer to like, no, but what is real?
I mean, even closer than that, right? A lot of them are just looking at, no, just tell us that you have X copies sold. Like an actual kind of traditional startup, like lean startup, like were you able to get some paying customers with this thing? And we're going to have a pendulum swing in another direction real soon, because what's happening, which is a little bit funny, is that the very, very early seed investors are now looking for the kind of metric that a much more mature financing round would be looking for. So they're kind of taking themselves out of the running for an early investment, because they're not looking for any of the early opportunities anymore. They're only looking for something that actually has a live service with active users, with revenue, etc.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a danger of the pendulum swinging so far that many investors miss out, because there's also, I think, in games, especially with sort of the like classical hit driven nature of games, there's a real world where someone who pursues getting the metrics that they want, that the seed investors want for seed, suddenly have enough revenue where they're like, I don't need investors anymore, and you've totally missed out on this upside.
I mean,
right?
that is exactly the space that we're arriving at now. So I think that we're at the basically the farthest the pendulum will go, and that's exactly where we're at right now. Where once you get to some of them, the more extreme metrics are more extreme. These obviously make sense. I would also want to invest in something that has these metrics, but at that point, you're at a place where you don't need that kind of funding anymore. Like once you already have, you're one of the two biggest gaming Kickstarters of that year. Okay, the very early VC seed or pre-seed is no longer interesting, right?
So you sort of mentioned this a lot earlier when we were talking about you choosing to go on this journey and understanding exactly how hard it would be. I like to talk to founders about sort of the network of support you build around yourself to support yourself on this journey that is very hard, is very stressful. In part because I think a good portion of the listeners of this podcast are folks who are thinking about going on this journey and haven't necessarily lived through how hard it can be. So the way I'd like to start that off is asking what you feel like your biggest struggle is as a founder. Like, as an individual founder, what are you struggling with the most, and how have you been approaching dealing with that struggle?
Hmm. So I am the kind of person that I used to compete in martial arts. I've done military service. I've done multiple startups. I try to get world first in World of Warcraft, Ragnaros, the Season of Mastery, and in WoW. I uh, 100% the Silk Song already with all of the achievements, all the speed runs, the zero depth stuff. I like to be in this space. I like to do something very hard, and I am very comfortable trying to do something very, very challenging. I think that maybe this is the kind of person that you should be if you're pursuing startups. I grew up, with parents that they're startup that turned out okay, um, and saw kind of like the drive and the will that took. Um, so I I do think that there are things that the hardest thing about doing the startup uh, is the drive, the energy, the putting the entire thing on your back and pushing it past the goal line. I kind of think that you should be, that you maybe want to be wired for that, or at least go in with eyes open. That that's what it's going to be like. Um, if on a founding team, um, if you're not that person, maybe you want to make sure that there is a person like that on your founding team, uh, because uh, someone's gonna be have to be the person that's charging through like that through the enemy lines and just making it happen. So one of the things, and I think that everybody that's doing this, doing a startup, feels like this. The uh, depending on the day, depending on the time of day, um, the weight of the world can get pretty heavy sometimes. Um, you can have a few months where everything feels like it's going great, but then you might have a time period or that 3 a.m. Just waking up in despair and you're just like, what the hell am I doing? Where is this going? This is so hard. There's so much to do, right? And just overcoming those periods of doubt, imposter syndrome, whatever you're going to call it. I saw a great quote once. Somebody was saying, I think it was on LinkedIn. I don't know where to attribute this. Like I, I started a startup. I sleep like a baby, which means waking up screaming at 3 every night. That is what it feels like a lot of the time. Um, you have to be a little bit insane to take this on. You have to be a little bit too stubborn, a little bit too bullheaded, is willing to charge through all of it and try to make it work. Otherwise, there's no way you're going to overcome all of that. But definitely, I've had some periods where I'm severely doubting what's going on. But then we get some good signal. We have some good playtests, some good progress. Some good feedback, and it's like, yeah, no, this is still great, and I'm very excited about it. Other people are getting excited about it. I'm gonna keep pushing.
I do always find it interesting what, at least for myself, the weird things that inconsistently trigger both the descent into anxiety as well as the emergence from anxiety of like, because to your point, like a lot of it often feels like it makes sense. Like, oh, you have a playtest and people are like, are like, oh, I didn't have fun. That wasn't good. It crashes all the
Oh,
time
yes.
or whatever. And you're just like stressed out. Or you have a great playtest and you're like, oh, people saw it and they're having fun. Okay. But like, I feel like I've also had moments where I had what should have been a great playtest, but then that triggers the anxiety because I'm like, oh, but there's so much more to do. And like, yeah, they're having
Mm,
fun, but now I have to live into that and like all this kind of stuff. And like that spins you out, right? So I think, finding, having the conviction to push through the bullheadedness, right? Like that, because I always, at least for myself, I try to think of it as like I have the conviction and the idea to fuel me being bullheaded. Um, and to make it through. But also having the sort of like coping mechanisms or support structures to help pull you out of those spins that, like conviction can help only so far when you're in the middle of a panic attack kind of idea, right?
Yeah,
And so like having the support structures to sort of help you through that moment of crisis so that you can get back to the like, okay, but I'm going to pick myself up and charge forward again.
yeah. I have a little kid, and my wife, when he was just a few months, got him this one book called "Go Get Him, Tiger," and she would read that both for him and for me, and just a bunch of affirmations about how you're doing great and you're the best at this, and it's gonna be awesome. You need some of that support. There's a concept. Have you heard of wicked problems? This idea basically of problems that don't have just doesn't have a solution really. Like there's no, you can just have conflicting parameters, whatever it is, right? But um, I think whenever I feel like there's a wicked problem, that's definitely one of the things that can trigger a period of not having a lot of faith, or like some anxiety around how this is going to go, and it can seem like a wicked problem because it's something I don't have expertise in, right? Or we on the team don't have expertise in, or we're trying to find somebody to talk to about this problem, and the resolution of those problems can very often be then the upswing for another positive timeline where you figure out like, oh, this is actually like it, it isn't going to take 40 people to build this kind of networking thing, or it uh, I think something that really motivated me really recently. Something that really motivated me very recently was we were doing a review of the script for the trailer that we're making right now, and the initial script was okay, but it's like we weren't really. I was like, are we really capturing what's special about the game? Is this funny? Is this going to interest people? And then we had a script review. We had a ton of feedback that we went through. I mean, the Google Doc is 1 page long with 5 pages of comments on, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just so much feedback. And then once we had gone through and done another pass at it, this is great. This is phenomenal. Like now there's a lot of work to do where like we have to actually build all of the pieces that goes into this trailer because a lot of it's not in the game yet. A lot of it is, but a lot of it's still missing. But that's not a wicked problem. That's just work. I know how to do that part, right? And we can get the art pieces together. We can get the various coding can be done. It's no big deal. We just got to buckle down and do it. Um, and I mean, having a clear path and something you believe in, getting continuous feedback on what you're doing wrong and I mean, this is just classic motivation psychology, which we do all the time in game development. It just needs to be applied to yourself at work as well.
But it's always easier to apply it to players than like have to do
Oh,
to apply it
much
to yourself.
easier. Yeah.
When you think about the next, 6 months, a year, what are you thinking a lot about both, for the company is I'm sure front of mind and a bunch of stuff there, but also for yourself as a founder. Like when you think about the journey over the next 6 months to a year, what are you sort of preparing yourself for, trying to do the pre work for, that kind of stuff?
Mm. So we are constantly, even on a much shorter timeline than that, reevaluating what is the thing that's going to be closest to getting us some meaningful metric, or the thing that's closest going to give us some interesting funding opportunity. So a year ago, or over a year ago, for example, Discord activities came out, and that's something that's very aligned with what we were doing, and that's also something that VCs signaled having a big interest in. So that was the thing that made the most sense for us. We're gonna both be able to show metrics this way, and this is something that maybe even before we have metrics, VCs will be interested in. So we kind of took a turn there, make sure we could run our game on Discord activities, which is very exciting. We still have it running there, and we could hop in with your friend very easily through a WebGL build of the game, basically. Now, that turned out to be something that, I mean, maybe the VCs are learning from the past hype rounds, but they turn out to not want to invest purely on the Discord activities route. So we pivoted off of that. We're still supporting it. We still super believe in that as a as a path, there are just like 144 million super social users that want to play this kind of game on there. It would be a great funnel, I think, for people to discover our game. But it's not the main thing that we're doing right now in terms of getting the next metric step, right? And we reevaluate this. Uh, we have discussion about it like at least every month. Reevaluate like if we should pivot a little bit, at least every 3 months. So right now, what we're pursuing is, we have our playable. Now we are pursuing getting attention from gamers through social media and our trailer that we're working on right now. And I don't have a crystal ball. Like I think this is the thing that is going to have the highest likelihood of getting us traction right now. We're pursuing that. We'll be reevaluating across this journey, along this journey, in case that changes. And depending if that succeeds or fails, that's just a decision tree of what we're doing next. I'm in this for the long haul. So for me as a founder, I'm making this game and getting it out to the masses one way or another. If this is going to be a 10-year, eventually solo project, or if this is going to be a some kind of funded 10, 20 person team, who knows?
Well, I hear solo dev is very in right now. So
Yeah, well, I enjoy it. I've spent a very long time in my career, kind of in the leadership or strategic levels, and for the first time since early 2000s, I'm back to full time writing code and making a game all of my day, and that is why I got into game development, because I love the process of actually making games. Um, you see a lot of questions on Reddit, how to get into game development, etc. And that's when I shout all these people, you just have to enjoy the process. If you don't like the act of doing it, you will be miserable, because it is not just sitting around and dreaming up ideas. It's actually making them happen. Uh, and I think that goes for startups too. Like, you have to enjoy the process of a startup. If you don't enjoy it, because that is what you will be doing most of your time, are the startupy things.
So I always like to close out the main section of the interview with an entirely unfair question, or what I think is
Mm.
often an entirely unfair question, which is, given the experience thus far, let's move ahead a few years. We won't say how this journey turns out one way or the other, but would you ever found another company?
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat. Um, the I am very energized by doing this, and I'm having a lot of fun. The As long as there is a vision that I am excited about, and that I believe has the kind of impact, like the possible impact of reaching millions of people, of changing their lives, I'm down.
Yeah, I do enjoy the reflection of, we started out this conversation talking about how jumping back into this journey, knowing exactly how hard it is because we're insane, and then we get to the end and you're like, oh yeah, I'd do it again. Yeah, 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 sign me up. More
Yeah,
pain, more pain. Come on, let's do it.
yeah, yeah, of course.
Awesome. I mean, to be fair, my answer is yes as well. So we're we're
There you
in
go.
we're in the same boat. So the way I like to close out our conversation is with what I call an introspection lightning round. What these actually are is questions that I often used when I was co-founder dating, and so they were questions that I would ask, and both the person I was talking to and myself would show up with answers, and we'd use them as the first step in aligning on values and all this kind of stuff, and just feeling out if we were the right fit to get business married together. And so I'm going to ask them to you more in a lightning round format, and we'll just go through. And it always starts out with, what is your superpower?
Mm. It is putting a product on my back and pushing it all the way through the finish line. And that is something I've done through like my whole career. If you look at Pocket Gems, when we're shipping games, like I'm up all night fixing bugs in Jira. It doesn't matter if my title is VP of game design. Like it's whatever it takes, I'm gonna be there. I'm gritting my teeth right now. You won't be able to see it over audio, but yeah.
Outside of your superpower, what are your biggest strengths?
I'm a multi-talented game developer. So I started as a programmer. I spent most of my career as a game designer. I can do VFX work. I can do a little bit of everything, and that helps me communicate also with every discipline there is. Right. I have a pretty strong understanding of the full stack of game development.
Yeah, I think that it is of course a great strength to be able to do all of those jobs. But even more importantly than that, since most often game development is a team sport, being able to
Yes,
know how to communicate and like translate. Okay, the engineer is saying this, but what they actually mean in art terms is this. Like it's
exactly.
so important.
Yeah, and as you say, and you're talking to backend engineers, and you can talk a little bit of networking programming. You can talk a little bit of art direction with art directors, and like where the uh, readability in the color palette isn't working for the game design. Like if you have a little bit of that understanding, uh, it is so incredibly helpful, and it is. Um, I had a coworker who was a director at NASA for a while and then joined CCP as a programming engineering manager. And he was there for a few years and then it's like, oh shit, I'm going back to NASA. Making games is too hard because it's all about communication. There aren't just
Mhm,
straight right or wrong answers for
mhm.
everything. Uh, you're having to sit down and talk through all kinds of different problems with different disciplines. Sorry, I digress. This is supposed to be a lightning round. Move on.
Yeah, that's all. It's all good. I'm just still tickled by the idea of someone going from NASA into Eve and then going back to NASA, and
Hmm.
both in the terms of like game development being harder than rockets, and then also, ooh, what parts of Eve do they bring back into NASA with
Yeah.
them?
Nice. Yeah. No, I mean that's the thing about if you're doing rocket stuff. They're right or wrong answers. So either your thing hits the asteroid or it doesn't. Like uh, it's not as easy to quantify it that way when it comes to the more artistic parts of game development.
The flip side of the previous question: what are your big weaknesses?
All the downsides that comes with being too headstrong. Again, talk over people. I can not see the flaws in my own reasoning, or like it takes me some time often. So what I have to explain to people a lot is uh, I may argue vehemently against you, but this is just part of my process. This is me breaking down the thing you're saying and seeing if you have more information to bring to the table, or if you have counters to my possible counters to your point. And I might have to sleep on it for 2 days, and then I'm like realizing, oh shit, yeah, you're right or wrong. I was wrong. And I think everybody has a forever quest, like something that they've been working on since they're a kid in their personality. And you probably get feedback on it from your teacher from being like 7 years old or something. This is mine. Talk too much, too bullheaded, and I'm very well aware of it. I work on it. I try to give other people the tools to deal with me as a person. Um, it's just, yeah, what I have to do.
What behaviors, especially sort of professional behaviors, are your stress reactions? So, like when you're under intense stress, what changes about your behavior?
I shut down. So I'm to a lot of people, I come across as an extrovert, but I'm actually. So I think my wife said it best. Is that I'm running extrovert software on introvert hardware. Um, and when things are going well, I am very engaged and social. But when things are not going well, that extrovert hardware stops running right, and I need to spend a lot of time to myself just to recharge. Um, I can just like stop projecting. And here's the thing, right? As a founder, if you're like the visionary on a team, that you're design lead of a project or anything like that, you you have to project confidence to the overall team, because everybody wants there to be somebody with a plan. Everybody wants there to be like a direction, or somebody that understands where things are headed and why. And when people stop feeling that, they uh, the motivation often goes out the window. And so those things become harder for me in those time periods.
And then what are the things that you need to have happen professionally on a regular basis for you to not go into that sort of stress reaction? I often call these like, what are your upkeep needs?
Can you clarify? Like things I do. Well, you said professionally. Do you mean like what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so my upkeep need is that I need regular feedback is not exactly the right word, but I need to be able to regularly see that the work I am doing
Mm,
is positively affecting the team and enabling them to do their job. And so a lot of times, if you were to work with me, you would hear me end sentences or end conversations with, "Was that helpful? Did that make sense?" That kind of stuff. Or like if I put do a spreadsheet or a presentation or something for the team, I often am immediately looking for like, hey, is this helping? Does this move the ball forward? Right. And silence, like people just like that work going out into the ether will drive me towards stress. Whereas someone even just being like, hey, I saw that presentation. I don't have time to go through all the feedback right now, but that is exactly what I needed. Let's keep going. Will push me further away from stress. And I just need to have that happen on a regular basis. Otherwise I go insane. My co-founders
hmm,
call it Carl's good boy points. I need my good boy points. Otherwise,
hmm.
I will just go off the deep end. So that's sort of like a thing I need to have happen
I
regularly,
got you.
right?
For me, it's forward momentum. Forward momentum on the project. I uh, can lose my mind if like we have multiple playtests and nothing hasn't really changed with the build. And then there's a million other things to do when you're running a company, but specifically the product you're developing moving forward is critical to me. So if I am having one of these periods where maybe I'm not that motivated, I might just sit down and build a feature so that Wednesday's playtest will be different than Monday's playtest. Just so we're seeing that, like, yeah, see, there's some new cool stuff in the game that we can all sit down and play together. Or you just see the list of Jiras, list of tickets shrinking a little bit. Like, look, I had 30 tickets the other day. I just sat down and knocked out all of them, and we can just see, like, look, we used to have 900, now we have 870. That's good. Something is moving in the right direction, and that gives me then energy to maybe focus on something that's a higher priority ticket. Maybe there's a presentation that needs to be worked on, or maybe there's a meeting to be prepared for. But uh, yeah, forward product momentum.
Well, that brings us to the end of our interview. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. If someone is listening to this and really appreciated something you had to say or had a question about your experience or your really cool playable demo that everyone should be clamoring down your door to play because it's fucking awesome, how do they best reach out to you?
The best place to chat with me is on LinkedIn. Jon Selin, JonSelin. You can contact me there. We are announcing some stuff pretty soon and getting some websites and things up. So there will be more contact opportunities coming up shortly with an email list to sign up to for, etc. But for now, LinkedIn will be the best.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. It's been an amazing conversation.
Always a pleasure to chat, Carl.
Thanks for listening to the entire episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends or anyone you think could benefit from it, and leave us a positive rating or subscribe. This episode was edited by Christopher Delano, music by Jake Hall, who's available for composer work in games. And if you're interested in learning more about the Game Founders support community, go to gamefounders.org or email me at carl@gamefounders.org. Thanks so much.